your thoughts on that, Dustin?
You're a legislator. If you want to ask a question for clarification, I think you should ask that question. That's not directing somebody to do something.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
If I wanted to come to FMCC and give you a visit because I didn't know what was happening at the campus with the clean room, and you
Right.
wanted to show me, don't mix that up with what we're, right?
I think it's an excellent way to describe it.
Thank you.
Joey.
Gee, Tom, I'm starting to think you're related to Mayor Thane a little bit in Amsterdam. She as I was alderman there, she kind of weakened the committee structure and almost did away with it, where she was supreme power of the city down there.
Oh, I'm not.
And I'm just telling you that. I'm just saying that it's a similar situation going on with me right now. And you got people here that have expressed interest in what they're doing. I mean, I have no interest in being in accounting or auditing and things like that. You know, you have a legislator over here that's expressed in education and college and what she wants to do, and I have no interest in wanting to do that. I mean, it's just, I think you're limiting the talents of your people here by putting it in a committee of the whole. That's just the way I feel.
That's why we're talking about it. So I'm just throwing these things out there
to
to.
be funny a little bit. That's
I know. I'm just throwing these things out there. If you want to keep this committee structure, let's do it, but we got to understand where the lines are drawn. If we keep the committee structure, we just have to understand what our lines are and what our jobs are, as Duke eloquently said. What is my job and what is Matt's job and what are the department head's job? If you want to keep the committee structure, let's keep it, but what is it?
I just mean, you're concentrating on the whole here, everybody. That's fine, and that's our job too. But also, you can specialize more, a little bit more concentration on what you're doing, a little bit better understanding that way. That's the only way I feel it.
And I agree with what Joe's saying, and I also see Tom's point, and I think that we should keep the committee structures the way that they are, with exception to, I think the Finance Committee is very important, and we should all meet as a whole, because that is our major purpose, is to control the purse strings, to be the check and balance when it comes to the tax levy. And you know, that's why I think it's a great idea to have a rotating third member on the audit committee, because we all need to be aware of what we're sitting here and saying, oh, yeah, I'm going to pass X amount of dollars for a lift for this and X amount of dollars for toilet paper. And we need to know where the cogs in the wheel all fit. And I think that, you know, if we were to go with a committee as a whole, I think that the Finance Committee is...
I mean, if you read down through our duties from B through, it's all about budget. It's all about finance. It's all about the fiduciary responsibility that we have, which brought me to my earlier discussion with Matt of, you know, that seems like that is what we are focused on and what we should be focused on the most. But again, throw these things out there. Let's get a clear path on the direction we want to take. There's nothing saying that we can't keep this committee structure for a year. We're all going to be here 3 years. There's nothing saying that next year we can't change that a little bit if we see that it's not, you know. I don't want to create stumbling blocks for our executive. I don't want to have my leg out there to trip them. There's no reason to do that. And so if we keep the committee structure, how do we do it? How do we pass the resolutions through? Get them to the clerk, get them to us.
And like you said, Tom, moving forward, as we implement this committee system, which I believe we've already approved.
The committee system is approved through the rules of procedure, and then I appointed and gave you folks the assignments.
So,
and
if as we go through the year we discover that it's really not accomplishing anything, then we can maybe even have one of these meetings.
I mean, and again, I agree with you totally. You don't want to return to where you were, but history is important to understand what failed and what was an accomplishment. And we would come to committee meetings and beat each other up across the room for 2 hours, and then do it all over again in 2 weeks at the full board meeting. And it was just, to me, a complete waste of time. It would have been much better to have, you know, even your committee structure with people getting involved. That's fine, but to have the resolutions come to us, to argue about them. I mean, you people are sitting in the gallery, saw it. I mean, we would argue in committee meetings for 2 hours over the same things that we would end up arguing over again the next week and say the same thing over. We could have just
Why?
played a tape recorder.
Why?
Because that was the
Why
structure.
isn't it settled in the committee structure?
I-
That's
it
where
just-
things should
was
get
a-
settled.
To me, it was a failed system. It just was that's my personal opinion, and mine only. But
Well, I
to-
would think that, Mr. Chairman, I would think that people who were not on the committee, who may be in opposition to something that was being proposed, wanted to be heard on the matter. And thus-
Every time.
thus the debate.
Every time.
Each and every time.
I mean, it was, the rules were clear that people could talk that weren't on the committee and engage, but we had people not on the committee adjourning the meetings, sponsoring resolutions, making amendments, and they weren't on the committee. But again, that's all passed, but you need to understand the history, and it is important. So, go ahead.
One other thing, with the charter, we have dates that are earlier than they've ever been before. So we have 15th of June, 30-day charter, so there's a lot more things. So I definitely think having all 9 of us be on the finance committee is,
Well, we have a government and education committee that's going to meet next Tuesday. I think it's a great topic of conversation for them to talk about. The one thing I wanted to bring up about the charter, another hot topic that's been on the agenda is the appointments. The exec came to us with his initial appointments on the day of our organizational meeting. We passed them through. There has been conversations back and forth from Matt and I and Doug and you folks on what are Matt's appointments and what aren't. If you want to be Johnny Cochran and read the charter one way, you would say that he should be coming to us with a personnel, what's Richie's, personnel director, this and this. Matt says no, statutes don't require us to do that, they got to serve their time out. Here's what Matt and I are thinking, and Doug. We don't know. I mean, we look at it and we think we know what it says. So my suggestion was a resolution for all those appointments that you don't think need to have confirmation this time around. A simple resolution for us acknowledging all those statutes, maybe you can say it better than I, Doug, all those statutes and all those opinions out there that A, B, C, D, and E do not need to have confirmation this time around, but we're not relieving ourselves of that duty in the future, because once their terms expire, it's done.
Yeah, and the key really centers around due process, terminating an employee without due process. And we could really run into some real serious issues there. I got the backup here, I got a packet for each legislator, which I'll give you with the backup that we got from, that was the opinion of Civil Service and the Department of State on those 4 particular positions, and that's how I feel on it. I say we and I did not appoint, because again, I have to appoint for you to confirm. So I chose not to appoint because I tend to agree with this interpretation, and I would like to see these employees finish their terms, and at the end of that term is when we make the decision on whether to reappoint or not.
And that's when we all agree, then they are confirmed by us.
Correct.
At that point.
At that point.
Because if Matt were to actually reappoint every one of them today, those new appointments would have all new terms for 5 and 6 years.
Correct.
So what I'm saying is, for the sake of the charter, and anybody that wants to think we're doing wrong, if we just had a simple resolution by us acknowledging everything you just said, and I think, Doug, you agree, acknowledging that the statutes require the due process, that we acknowledge that those positions are staying where they're at and won't be confirmed until they come up. Right, Doug? Or say it better.
Well, actually, I had anticipated the night that I met with 8 of you after the last Board of Supervisors meeting on December 17th, actually going over some of those appointments, and while the meeting was obviously very productive and so forth, we didn't really get into it too much. I did give, I believe, each of you a handout with a list of positions on it, and what my research had revealed and what I had concluded, not that I'm necessarily the final arbiter of this, I'm not, but as to what the status of some of those positions were. Positions where people were appointed for fixed terms pursuant to either state law or local law by the Board of Supervisors, and the people are in the middle of a set 5-year term, 4-year term, 6-year term, whatever it might be. There's no question that going forward, any appointments to these positions that are made by the executive, subject to the confirmation of the legislature. The question was, did the charter terminate or truncate the terms of office that were appointed by the Board of Supervisors? And if you took a look at that, I know there's not a great deal of verbiage with respect to any one in particular, but I did try to show what I had concluded, and for the most part, it is true that from my research, those terms of office continue until they expire, and then a new appointment would be made pursuant to the charter.
So long as they don't conflict with any local law.
True.
Right.
Correct.
So there's positions that I feel, like Paul's, that was created through local law, that I say do truncate and start now. I'm willing to say, I'm good with putting that one off and not argue it, because I think I win that one, me personally, that's my opinion. But what I'm saying is to alleviate my fears of somebody coming back on me about that, let's just have a resolution saying that we acknowledge what you're saying.
Well, the local law may be in conflict with the charter, but it wasn't in conflict with anything at the time the appointment was made.
Right.
And so the appointee is given
He needs due process.
He needs due process. He's almost given a property right in the position for the remainder of the duration of that appointment, being that the local law was valid and in effect at the time of the appointment. You wouldn't continue to appoint pursuant to that in the future, to that local law. You'd appoint pursuant to the charter.
It's just getting started here.
But
It isn't what's going to happen after. We all know what's going to
And
happen.
frankly, I think most of these terms expire within your terms. So there will be an opportunity to, go through this process with each of these people, but, I feel giving that not giving that due process, as I said earlier.
And like I said, I think a simple resolution for anybody out there that would argue that point, just a simple resolution that says, realizing due process, state statutes, everything that you mentioned, we are good with the people that are there, just to get us through this first hump. Don't you agree?
Well, as I said to you yesterday, if the legislature is so inclined to pass such a resolution, I don't see anything wrong with it, but at the same time, I'm not sure that it really changes the status of the existence of the appointments as they are, whether you want it to or whether you don't want it to.
Only reason I say it, maybe it's my history from being here, when you go back into record books and look for the history, if you had something like that, it would show a clear-cut meaning of what we did. If you don't have it, minus that, you're wondering, what happened back then? Nobody knows. You're relying on my memory, which isn't a good thing to rely on.
It would show...
So it shows that there's a record.
It would show the mindset that existed on the legislature at that given point in time. As we sit here, I don't know if that is the mindset of the members.
I said to Matt, I don't care if he puts all the names up. I'd vote to appoint them all. But to his point, if you do that, the record book's going to show a different course.
Well, and we start new terms and
Right.
that whole process. And frankly, it is my belief and the way I'm approaching this office is to really take the time to get to know not only the departments, the structure of the departments, the ins and outs, but the people. And, I felt it was the right thing to do was to, move forward with people we have. And once I'm in there and I have access, you know, if we need to make changes down the road, we do so at the appropriate time, rather than coming
Right.
in there with an axe and just kind of, you know, starting off on a very rocky foot. I think this is the best way forward as far as, you know, giving the people what they wanted, and that's, you know, a professional government, one that, you know, we're taking care of business.
And Dusty, jump in, but I think the intent from the board was, we're starting fresh, we're doing over. You didn't look into all the due process and the,
We had 3 attorneys on the commission, and we had this very conversation,
Really?
and came to the conclusion that because of state or local law, the employees would need to keep their terms even after the charter went into effect.
So
Yeah.
what was,
why wasn't that written in then? Or why
Yeah,
didn't
why
they?
didn't you put that?
Why not just put that simple verbiage of understanding, not criticizing?
I'm not taking it as a criticism, because it's a one-time occurrence. It's a one-time occurrence where the folks who have an appointment and you've had a change in government, I wouldn't,
It's never gonna happen again.
it's never going to
Right.
happen again.
So you're essentially looking for a resolution basically stating that we're going to honor their remaining terms.
On remaining terms because of the due process and statute that's afforded them. And then list, not so much, I don't think it's the names that matter, but the positions. And then moving forward, I think it just cuts a clear record for us and shows us where we can discuss it. I mean, nothing has to be done again. It's just a lot of the backroom talk that's been going on that I'm trying to clear the air with, because Matt and I have been hearing it for, you know, from either legislators, outside people wondering if they have a job. This is the place to, you know, clear that up. And Martin.
Were you able to look into that, the question I had about outside agency
Yes.
appointments?
Yes. Outside agency appointments, in other words, agencies that are not boards of the county government or actually part of the county government. I think what you'll find there is the agencies request an appointment of a county representative. And it's really within the structure or bylaws or some type of resolution of the board of directors of the organization that there may be something that says in theirs, okay, we're going to have a member of the board of supervisors on our panel, on our board. That outside agency would now, I don't want to use the word have to, but would be well advised to change its governing document to reflect an up-to-date version of where the representative is going to come from. And, you know, if they want to put that it's appointed by the county legislature, a representative of the county legislature appointed by the county legislature, I would certainly expect that this body would honor that and appoint one. You gave me a couple of examples, and I think that would be true of the ones you did, and there may be others.
Well, the one in particular that I wanted to talk about was the health trust. We looked at that, and we look at that document, and it says the county and the city. Doesn't say the county board of supervisors, doesn't say the city council. I know what it was assumed to mean, and we know what happened. It was the board of supervisors that made their appointments and the city council that made their appointments. I'm the only one left on the trust right now.
That's true.
As a holdover. We as a board have said we know that there's 3 members that we would like to, Joe and I, to continue, and Terry. Matt and I had the discussion, and I think he thought that, you know, that would be an appointment that he would do. I don't think it's a big deal, especially now that he knows who we were looking at. But it's a one more time. This is another one of those one more things, because this thing is ending, folks. So.
Yes, if I may, we spoke about that, and I agree. While it may be, and perhaps hopefully will be short-term, there should be 3 representatives of the county on the trust board to wind down business, and I think the city is in the process of appointing its 2 representatives to do the same thing. Chairman, you're right, you're the only one left, but for one reason or another, all of the other positions. So Legislator Isabel was on as a representative of the city, but of course he's no longer with the city, so he's no longer a city representative. He could now be a county representative. I don't know if he wants to be, but he could be. But
I believe
And
these,
the other two county representatives are no longer affiliated with the county, so they no longer qualify, so they're no longer on.
hypothetically, I like to do this hypothetical thing. Let's just say that they were the executive's appointments.
Right.
Let's just say they were, even though I would argue that there are appointments. It's something that really we don't need to spend a lot of time on. He knows the three names that we've already talked about. I personally don't care. If that's what he's going to do and puts it up, then let's just pass it, get it over with, and get it done with. But business needs to carry on there because the winding down of the affairs has to happen, and we got to get through that. It's a one more deal here. I mean, it's not going to be much, you know.
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate.
And,
course to follow.
you know, the other appointments, I was asked tonight by, maybe you can help with this. Rick said there's a fire advisory board, and
There is.
that was always appointed by the supervisors, but now,
And I've discussed that at length with Jeff. Essentially, Jeff was going to handle some of the appointments down the line in emergency management. And we're working out some of the details on that as far as who.
which I think is in the charter,
I
right?
believe so,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's, you know, and bear with me because I'm supposed to be the expert on every one of these things, and we're tackling them as they come up, we're tackling them. But that, you know, I believe Jeff has the authority to do that, and I've come to that understanding with him. And if there are issues that come up, I ask him to keep both I and the legislature informed. So, and that was the first I've heard from Rick on that.
And they're meeting the 27th, and
Yeah.
I think there was one change or something that he thought about that he wanted to.
Yeah, and, but,
offer
you know,
up and-
and maybe this is a question for Dusty regarding to appointment. My understanding is, you know, most of the language regarding appointments, if not all, is related to the executive, and really isn't, that is really not a function of the legislature, with the exception of auditing, the clerk and a couple others that are specifically outlined in the charter. But was that also the intent of the commission as well?
Well, I would tell you, we didn't get into that much detail, but I believe, I would sit here and say, I believe the intent was that the executive would make appointments to be ratified by the legislature, except in cases where they are a legislative committee.
Well, that's where the rub is they've always been the Board of Supervisors in a lot of instances.
Yeah, but without that, it falls, there are two provisions in the charter that I would almost call default positions that talk about appointments to non-specific entities. And it does indicate that they would be appointed by the executive subject to the confirmation of the legislature. And I would classify the Montgomery County Health Insurance Trust to be such an animal.
Not an agency of the county. I mean, when you read, the problem you have is when you read the trust of bylaws, it says the County Board of Supervisors shall appoint 3 of its members. The city council shall appoint 3.
Actually, it just says 3 members will be appointed by the county.
By the county.
At the time,
There was no
no
charter.
other choice other than the Board of
So that must have been their
Supervisors.
intent, is what I'm saying. At the time, that was their intent.
For it to be the Board of Supervisors. But with the charter in effect, you do have provisions in here, while they don't specifically relate to the health insurance trust, you do have language in the charter talking about appointments.
But then you go back to
boards,
the due
commissions,
process.
and,
Respectfully, really, this is becoming torturous. I think the reason you feel like you're losing something is because you did. You lost a form of government.
I don't
that you
feel
were
like I'm
before.
losing it.
No, the idea of being able to appoint someone to the Fire Service Advisory Board or whatever, is really not worth fighting over.
It's not a fight, Duke, it's clarification. People have come to me as chairman asking me these questions.
Interestingly enough, I've done that before too. I was on that board, but I think it'll be just fine if the appointment is made other than this board.
I don't have a problem with it. I just want clarification because people sitting in this semicircle have come to me and asked me. And I believe it's my duty to make that clarification or try to come to that end. It isn't about me losing power. I'm happy to let Matt take it. It feels good.
Thank you.
I got a question for Doug. Isn't the health insurance trust a separate legal entity? Wouldn't it have to have been created the separate federal ID number and everything?
It has a separate tax ID number.
So it's a separate entity.
Yeah.
And it would probably have to be nonprofit.
I don't believe it ever acquired not-for-profit status.
Well, in certain nonprofits, you don't have to actually get permission to be a nonprofit. You can just operate as a nonprofit. So
Believe me,
that
Alex, we
makes
don't
it-
know what this
Well,
operator is.
that may be, are you suggesting that a different course of action
Well, no, I'm
is?
suggesting that it may not be affiliated with any government entity, that it's just its own entity.
Well,
To ensure Article, the purpose was for it to be an Article 44 or 47 insurance trust,
Right.
which it never became.
which it never became, but that was the,
And it would operate under its own trust agreement. And basically, these
I-
appointments
yeah.
represent the Board of Trustees.
I don't disagree with that, and I'm not,
So that's
Terribly,
a separate legal entity from the county or the city or anything else. I think it falls back to where Matt is appointing whoever he wants to have represent the county.
Well-
Sorry, and frankly, if it's going to move this discussion forward, I'm less concerned about who the members of the trust are right now, and I welcome your suggestions. I'm more concerned about the process, making sure that, we keep to the intent of the charter, and that's, so if there's concern that I'm going to come in and change what you would like, that certainly isn't my intention.
Mark,
Do the Board of Supervisors have a representative on your Board of Trustees?
No, they appoint members of the Board of Trustees. The county appoints members of the Board of Trustees.
Now, who, with the charter in place, who appoints those?
I would go to Matt for his appointment, which I assume would then be ratified by,
confirmation.
Now, the legislature is the body that passes funding for your organization, for cooperative extension, Office of the Aging, things like that. Wouldn't we need, or wouldn't we be given representation on those different boards?
not by law. No, you, the county, whatever process you use, you, the county,
Right.
has the right to appoint trustees, whomever you choose to be those trustees.
We, the county, as one group, executive and legislative, or the legislative body gets to appoint those liaisons or whatever to watch the money that we're giving to you, or cooperative extension, or Office of the Aging.
The law says the county gets to appoint. So how the county appoints is not included in state law. You get X number of representatives on the Board of Trustees. I think the discussion here tonight is, how do you do that? And I think the assumption from the Charter Commission was the county executive would make recommendations for all appointments, and they would be ratified by the legislature. And Doug, isn't that the way I heard you read it as well? And that was, but I gotta tell you, we didn't get down into
Right.
this level of minutia over appointments.
I don't disagree with that, but, and Martin and I have had this discussion, the language that's used in what I referred to as the two default provisions in the charter does refer to county boards and commissions and board of the county, which the Community College Board of Trustees, at least arguably, is not.
Correct.
So that was the purpose of the discussion about where there have been representatives appointed by the Board of Supervisors to various outside agencies in the past. How does that work? The charter doesn't appear to specifically address that, and I think that we may have to look at education law with respect to the appointments to the Board of Trustees and to see what might be out there when the need arises for appointments to be made to that, because I'm not so sure that the language of the charter specifically addresses that. The ones that are boards of the county itself, affiliated with the county government itself, yes, you'd follow the provisions that call for the executive and confirmation of the legislature.
Chair, I think a lot of discussion has to do with the lack of language in the charter. What I'd like to discuss is what the language of the charter is, and the charter specifically tells us what positions the legislature can appoint. So aside from those positions, my interpretation would be, except for the 2 or 3 positions we appoint, the rest of the appointments would be the county executive. So we do have specific language on what we appoint. The other, I think, would go to the executive. It's like negotiating labor contracts. They always have the absence of language. It's the same thing. We know what we can appoint, and I'm not going to repeat myself. You got it.
Point well taken. Martin.
To follow up with what Roy was saying, you look to 3.3, it clearly states what the executive is to appoint, which Doug kept referring to, if I'm correct.
There's another one, I think it's
The county department.
106.
Administrative units not administered by elected officials except as otherwise provided by law in this charter.
No.
Your part of it, 3.3. Appointments by the county, by the executive.
That, and also, just if I may, just that those provisions exist. The other one that I have looked at numerous times is 12.06, all other county offices and boards.
And again, I go back to Dusty and say, the intent, I think, is kind of what Roy was just saying, that with the exception of what is indicated in the charter, or am I wrong?
Again, we didn't get down to this much detail.
Right.
But I believe the intent was for the executive to bring to the legislature his or her appointments to whatever the county is going to be, whoever's going to represent the county wherever, to be ratified by the legislature.
Okay. That's all I had on my short list. If any other legislators have something they want to bring up?
I do. Tomorrow, the governor delivers a State of the State message, and a lot of it is going to be about property taxes and perhaps property tax rebates that might be available to local municipalities. Those rebates, of course, are going to be based on putting budgets in place that are under the 2% tax cap. But also in the second year, much of it is going to have to do with shared services initiatives. It's very clearly the direction the state is taking, and this goes all the way back to when Adrian Cuomo was Attorney General, where a whole bunch of laws were changed to make consolidation of local governments easier. They talk about the 15,000 different levels of, different governments in New York State, and the fact that some people, New York State is only one of 10 states where you could actually live under 3 different taxing jurisdictions. In order to get this tax relief in year 2 of the governor's proposal, we're going to have to entertain some shared services initiatives. And I wanted to speak with you about what committee that might come under and how we can pursue that further. In addition, I know that the previous board conducted a couple of different studies in some different areas. One was solid waste. The other was, there was a county road study that was done. I'd like to get those out and take a look at them, and I'm not sure which committees those would come under specifically, but would recommend to the chairman that perhaps they be placed for assignment.
To answer the question about shared services, it was formed, I may have formed one when I was chairman. It was an ad hoc committee of 3. I believe there was actually somebody from the city of Amsterdam on it. Barb Johnson was on it. But it's a committee that we could certainly form, as well as other committees. But again, trying to set a clear path with the committee structure too. Are we going to form more committees, or are we going to, I know, like, lessen committees? I don't.
I would be fine if you just placed the topics under or assigned them to the committees. I'm not sure which ones they would go to under this.
Well, I don't think shared services was assigned to a committee under this structure. That's why it was formed in the past as a separate ad hoc committee. Am I right, Doug? I don't believe it.
I believe that's true.
It was an ad hoc.
So we can create that committee or any other committees that we, ad hoc committees that we want, so we can, yeah.
This is going to become extremely important, and I think that we need to act.
Let me ask you a suggestion. Would the committee, in your vision, be a committee of similar nature of 5? Would it be a committee of 3? Would it have people outside of this legislative body on it?
Well, I think that we need to form a committee within our own system here. It could, as I mentioned earlier, it could come under something that's already existing, as long as we address the topic. I think this is going to be the direction that we're being pushed, and certainly we want to address it in proper fashion.
What we'd have to do under our rules of procedure is place that committee in something. Would it be under general services, maybe? If we did that, then in rules of procedure, we would want to make an amendment to this and place it in there, and then those 5. Or I don't have a problem creating a committee. Do we want 5 on it if we did it, or?
I haven't given any thought to that, just the topic.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about it.
I just wanted to ask the county executive and the chairman of the board if it would be possible, and I know you have a lot on your plate, and you're both maybe going to the state of the state tomorrow. There is a puppy mill bill on Governor Cuomo's desk, and there's been a lot of talk about it. I've had many calls. If it would be possible to maybe write a letter of support to sign this bill legislation. I know there was a court case at Judge Seitz's courtroom that went very well, but having the 2 of you sign it would go much farther than even if we did a resolution. It wouldn't get there in time. It has to be signed by the 10th, which is 3 days, and 2 days after today. To just encourage from Montgomery County to sign this legislation.
I have no problem with that.
I'm good with it if that's what the legislature would like. Matt, if Nancy could maybe, or Cheryl, draft a letter, either one, I don't care. And then we'll sign it.
Yeah, we just need to get the bill number. If you have the bill number, that'd be helpful.
I will.
Yeah, I have a copy of it here.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Thank you.
also to piggyback on what Barbara was saying about the puppy mill issue, I would like it if it were possible for us as a body to put together an animal welfare investigation and cruelty prevention committee that can be a body of people that consists of people from the Montgomery County Humane Society, there's animal shelter, a large animal vet, a small animal vet, and members of the community who have a passion for animal welfare, so that we have something in place that can head off issues such as the one that everybody's getting those phone calls about. I think it would be a proactive thing for us to do, and I'd like to.
I think it's a great idea. I think one of the first things that they should look at is the existing laws in Montgomery County surrounding the definition of animal cruelty.
What I believe that's what the state legislation really handles, is it gives the locals more of leeway to enact tougher laws, which is why that legislation is so important.
Yes, and I think, you know, if we're going to do it justice, we need to have a committee that not only has animal rights activists, but also representatives of those who are in the production animal industry, because it's not just dogs that are abused, there are equine and other animals, and I think all animals fall under it. And in Montgomery County, agriculture plays a major role in our economy, and I think it would be important for us to put together a committee like that.
Rule 32, the legislature may from time to time create special committees. This will go for, I think, Dukes and any resolution creating a special committee shall specify the powers and duties of the committee and the number of its members. Each member of any special committee shall serve for the period specified in such resolution, but in any event not longer than the term of which he or she shall have been elected a legislator. That tells me that it has to be a committee of the legislature, of what we could create. I don't think we have the power to create outside of the legislature, do we?
I think that's actually falls under the executive.
Right.
So you can do that. We could have a legislative committee that looks at that, but
I'm willing to
It's
work with Martin to
something
do
that
that.
needs to happen.
okay. Somebody,
And I think those 2 points put together definitely strengthens Legislator Wheeler's point in sending a message to the Capitol that this bill needs to be passed, because it does exactly that. It allows local governments to pass more stringent health and safety regulations for the treatment of animals. So I'm fully in support of
I will be at the State of the State tomorrow as well, and if you have that letter in hand, I'll be in Albany early, we could both sign, and then,
Yeah, I mean, we'll make sure it gets there. Because I'm not sure if I'm going to be in here, I'm going out there. I have the County Executive Association in the morning.
so we may not be able to, yeah, we'll have to
But she
get,
said we got 2 days, we can, no reason why
Right.
Nancy can't draft up, we can send an email copy, or a digital copy, excuse me.
Thank you.
It'll get there on that.
okay, last, if no legislators have anything, some department heads came tonight, and I'm glad that you did. Do you have anything for us? All right, I'm sorry.
I have one thing before.
That'll be more.
I'm going to be giving to everyone one of the issues we did not talk about is in relation to our Director of Public Health. We have residency issue there. I have the legislation, or the resolution that Herkimer County had done to address this issue, and also a copy of the state legislation that was needed to address this issue. And that's something that's in here that I will pass to you as we wrap up.
Now, in regards to those 2 situations, and I had spoke to Doug about this, again, I would be comfortable, and I know it's just a one-time deal. We tried to pass this residency thing 3 years ago, and I sponsored it and it failed. But for those 2, a resolution from our legislature recognizing that we're working on this. Because really, if we're going to go by the charter, until these people are confirmed, they can't take the job. They can't work. That's what the charter says.
Well, this particular resolution basically asks the state to pass state legislation that would allow us to waive.
But what I'm getting at is because people are tonight concerned about the powers and duties and authorities and all that stuff, it says
I agree.
they shall be confirmed or not go to work.
With the appointments.
Huh?
I think we should go ahead. I think that we should go ahead with the appointments.
I agree with Doug. I think that those appointments should move forward. We should approve them with a resolution that states, we understand they're not residents, but we're working on it. You agree?
I believe we have the rest
Huh?
of the years
With
here.
a little bit better language.
With a little better language.
Well, that's why I have a copy here for everybody.
Can we refer
Yeah.
them as
Well-
interim in their positions? until we resolve the issue?
I think we should. I think it's a great idea. I think that ever how we can clarify
I
that.
think we just need to be very careful in regard to public comment. I'm not saying we don't do that, but I'm saying let's do our due diligence along the way to make sure we're not doing what we think is a good idea that may actually cause us some issues down the line. That's all. I agree.
Okay, I don't have anything else. Do I?
With regard to the contracts issue that you had brought up, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page as far as where we stand right now. Or were you done with that issue?
Well, again, I just want a clear-cut path, whatever it is, it is. There's people that are under the position that there is no threshold. There's some say that they'd like a threshold. He's willing to work with us. Again, it's nothing about taking power from me. We can give it all to Matt. I just want a clear-cut path of where we're going so I don't continue to hear it.
No, my only concern is not to continue the debate about it now necessarily, but just to recognize that at the moment, there is no threshold.
Right, and I
So-
think until something's done, if he signs the contracts,
Yes.
there's provisions in the charter that,
And if there's any concern at all, come talk to me. I'm there every day. I will be there every day. Come talk to me.
My concern is simply that business has to go on, and until something changes, if I were asked, my advice would be that they would go to the county executive for his approval or disapproval until and unless something changes.
and I think we had a clear-cut path created that would allow us to have the contracts over here and see them and all that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we're working together
It's
with
gonna
this.
be transparent, open, and honest with us.
Martin?
Not to make us go on any longer or anything, but these contracts aren't going to violate the adopted budget.
No.
Oh, no.
I don't know what,
The provision with respect to, which I think is 302G, it provides for the executive to execute the contracts within the appropriated limits. I'm not quoting it, but so,
That means they're appropriate.
right.
Joey?
Maybe I expressed myself a little bit wrong, but I sat there, like I said, and watched the common council lose its powers for quite a few years, and at the end, we could barely do anything. I just don't want to see that happen to a new board. I want to see this board do what it's supposed to do by the new charter, and that was what I was trying to say.
My goal.
Okay?
My goal. Hopefully all of our goals.
Awesome.
Huh? Go ahead.
In case anybody has or hasn't noticed, the Montgomery County flag is not here right now because it will be proudly displayed tomorrow at the State of the State. So when you're down there,
Nice.
well, I'm wondering what happened to this.
Matt, I know had wanted to discuss something with us in executive session regarding the dissolution of MOSA. I want the correct terminology to go into executive session because I know we have to be within our...
My understanding of what the discussion would be discussion of contractual negotiations with an outside entity.
So, look for a motion to go into executive session for that reason. Barbara? Second?
And I do point out, as I pointed out to the couple that I had spoken of on this regard, just from the standpoint, maybe there are specific reasons and justifications for which executive sessions can be held. And I know perhaps some of you have not been involved in this kind of setting before. We are obligated by state law to abide by them, so this is not a proposed general discussion on solid waste, but specifically...
Negotiations.
Yeah.
The second was by Ryan. Discussion on going into executive session.
Can we take like a 5-minute recess? 2 minutes?
Well,
I just have to go.
It'll take that long to clear everybody out and do that. So.
I'll second that.
All right, everybody's in favor?
Aye.